Conjunctions are a part of speech that allow us to tie different parts of the sentence together. So these different parts can be clauses or phrases or words. And I've drawn a couple of really crappy pictures here just to illustrate how conjunctions work. So you can think of conjunctions as a kind of hinge or as a bridge, which allows us to move from one part of the sentence to another, and it brings these parts together. So if we use an example here just to introduce conjunctions, we could take a couple of sentences and we could say, I love my dog. There we go, there's sentence one. And then you could also say, she does not play fetch. Okay, so there we go. And if we want to tie these two together, we can use a conjunction. So we can add a word like although or but if we want. And then this conjunction allows us to put these two sentences together to form one new sentence. And that's what we'll talk about in this video, what the most common conjunctions are and how they work in particular sentences. There are three kinds of conjunctions, and we'll start here with the coordinating conjunctions. And what these conjunctions do is they tie together two equal elements. So two equal elements. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions, and it's probably a good idea to memorize them because you're going to see them all the time. So we have for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. As you can see, there's this acronym, fanboys, which helps some people at least to remember them. The way I like to think about them is to put together and but. These are the most common, and they create a kind of contrast. So and ties together two things that are similar, there's continuity, whereas but focuses more on difference and going in a new direction. Then we have for, or, nor, and or, and these rhyme. I tend to think of them as like the dwarves. You know, if you think of the dwarves in the Lord of the Rings, then you can think of these as kind of the rhyming conjunction versions. And then we have a couple of other ones, yet and so, as our remaining two. Do be careful because so, for instance, can easily be an adverb, and everything as always depends on context. If we were to put these in a sentence, let's just make up a sentence here. We could say something like, I love work, comma, but I'm always late, which would be terrible behavior. So, but I'm always late, period. And what we can see here is that but ties together two equal elements, in this case, two entire clauses. You can also have smaller elements that are connected. So you could say something like fish and chips if you wanted to. And in this case, and is connecting two nouns. So that's what coordinating conjunctions do. They tie together two equal elements. Our second conjunction is the correlative conjunction. And the correlative conjunction is a pair of conjunctions that work together. So I like to think of these as relatives, cousins maybe, and they're working together to do the job. So these are either or, neither nor, whether or, and so on. So if we were to create a sentence out of this, we could say both T.S. Eliot and, there's our second one, both and Ezra Pound were modernist poets, let's just say. So we could finish our sentence with both T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound were modernist poets. That's our second kind of conjunction, the correlative. Not quite as common, but still one to watch out for. Our last kind of conjunction is the subordinating conjunction. And what these do is they tie together two unequal elements. So the idea of subordination is that one thing is less important or is dependent on another thing. a nice illustration for this is if you think about a tree, for instance. So we'll just draw a quick picture here. I don't promise that this will be great art or anything like that. All right, so there's the bottom part of our tree, and then we'll just add some foliage here. And there we go. If we think of the trunk of the tree as the independent clause, so let's just say I would go on a date with you. On a date with you, that can stand by itself as a complete sentence. We have a subject and a verb. We've got everything for a complete sentence. Now, a subordinating conjunction allows us to add something to this trunk of the tree, right? You can do away with everything else, but you still need a trunk. So if we think of the dependent clause that we're going to add as the branch of the tree, then we could say something like, I would go on a date with you if you pay. And this is a dependent clause, so it cannot stand by itself. It's the conjunction, the subordinating conjunction if, that makes it dependent. So the idea of the tree branches is that if you didn't have the trunk, then the branch would just fall to the ground. It could not stand by itself. And the idea then is that with independent clauses, we can add all sorts of stuff to them if we have subordinating conjunctions. So the subordinating conjunction then ties together two equal or unequal elements. There are many, many subordinating conjunctions. It's best just to look at a list. They include things like although, because, since, and so on. But the main thing for now is just to recognize the pattern and what these conjunctions actually do.